Hello fellow adventurers, Ryan here from D&D Awakening. Join us on our travels today with a new D&D story. The GM turned my one-note character into a full-fledged story-rich character. I've played RPG games for years, but mostly focused on the combat aspect. I loved making interesting builds and experimental ways of fighting. My office had a role-playing group that met after work and I joined in. Our GM was a master at running sessions, making it fun and interesting stories, integrating player backstories to his world settings, and offering interesting role-playing, puzzle, and combat challenges. The GM spun up a new 5e campaign. He told me that I tended to play characters with very little specific roles: healer, tank, DPS, etc. He recommended that I create a druid since they're all about adaptation and less about filling a role, more about being flexible for almost any situation. So I created Darwin, the level 1 druid who is a traveller from the Savage Lands, which is roughly Magic Australia, where everything wants to kill you. Roleplay wise, I played Darwin like a tourist, with odd customs, abundant curiosity, and providing life lessons from his nan back home. At first, Darwin was a joke character, constantly the butt of jokes, messing up his saves at inappropriate times. Hell, he died twice right off the bat from javelins. Our group had 5 free resurrection coins at the start of the game, but the party constantly reminded Darwin that he used 2 of them up in the dumbest ways possible. I wasn't bad at playing a druid, I just had unlucky rolls. But then the Eldritch Horrors started. It started slow. The GM introduced some cultists chanting a name none of us had heard before, but the GM mentioned that Darwin had heard the name before. This piqued my interest as a player, and begun chasing dangling threads my GM would leave, all while playing the curious tourist like before. The more I dug, the creepier things became for Darwin. Trying to recall things about the name would give him headaches. Soon, trying to recall anything from his past other than his nan became difficult. Wizards and magic shopkeepers would forbid Darwin from entering their homes. When I cast certain spells, they gain Lovecraftian attributes like dealing more damage, but appearing like a mass of black tentacles. At one point, the big bad evil guy invited us to her home for a dinner to gloat, and upon investigating Darwin, she freaked out and banished him from her home. And the nightmares. Every few weeks, Darwin would receive horrific nightmares. And that's when Darwin found a book. Found in a mysterious bookshop, Darwin wanted a history book of druids, trying to trace his lineage. To the rest of the party, the book looked like a normal, boring book on various druid tribes. But when Darwin would read it, he'd get lost in a trance, spouting in a mix of primordial, common, and druidic about gruesome rituals and the end of the world. As a player, I was freaking out. Darwin was supposed to be the loving side character, and here the GM was tying his existence to the apocalypse. Down the road, our party frees a powerful wizard from a cursed object, and he bestows several boons on our party. So I asked the wizard, "What's wrong with me?" He begins examining Darwin and in a mix of surprise and sadness says, "You appear to be a fabrication. You're not real, but an extension of an old one, set in this world to complete one task. Gather several books that will usher the old one into this planet." I actually cried when the GM told me that. This dumb character I made for kicks had such a cruel relation that he was destined to destroy the very world he'd come to love over his years of travel. And this led Darwin to one very poignant question: who was his nan? After dealing with another party member's side story of saving his parents from agents of the broken god, Darwin became clinically depressed. Our party leader decided Darwin needed answers and the only place to find them would be in his home, the Savage Lands. So we went. One thing became very apparent when we got to the Savage Lands. They were an inhospitable place, forcing the party to make multiple survival rolls as we trekked, and all terrain was difficult, but not for Darwin. To him it was home, it was paradise. The party came to a dingy village, which Darwin recognised from his hazy memory. Pushing through the crowd, he found the hut he grew up in, and inside was not the old woman the rest of the party expected, but a young and beautiful elf, dressed in black robes made of tendrils and eyes. The entire conversation between Darwin and his nan was long, passion-filled, and resulted in nan realising that Darwin had become defected. and cast a charm monster with a DC 25 wisdom save on Darwin. Even with his high wisdom, Darwin had no chance of overcoming the spell's DC, but luckily, he had friends. Prior to meeting Nan, our bard gave him some inspiration, and our paladin stood near me so I could have his aura of protection. With both their combined efforts, I made the spell's DC by 2 points. Doing so broke the old man's hold on Darwin. Nan politely told Darwin that he and his friends could leave, as a thanks for the years of service Darwin provided. But next time they'd meet, the wrath of the Old One would be upon us. The trek out of the Savage Lands was difficult this time. Darwin could not ignore the harshness of the environment. To this day, Darwin is collecting those tombs, hiding them from Nan and the other Old One followers. Darwin is my favourite character I've ever made. TLDR, I made a comic relief character that my GM slowly turned into a tragic hero, making me actually cry in game at one emotional moment. So our adventurers, what do you think of Darwin? And what do you think of this DM? For me, this DM is all about creating a backstory and creating the most immersive game possible. This is one of those DMs that we all love on the field. So guys, if you enjoyed this story, why not comment below and let me know? Why not hit that subscribe button to show us some support? And I'll see all you adventurers in our next tale. Take care.